It's the last Mailbag Monday before the deadline. Let's talk some trades. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ahoy, sailors. It is Monday, July 31st, 2023. This is Tiny Gonzalez and Colby Patnode for the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you so much for making us your first listen. Subscribe, like, and turn on alerts if you're watching on YouTube, or subscribe and leave a 5-star review on your preferred podcast platform if you like what you hear. And if you're part of the crew and rock with us every single day, let us know in the comments below. And if you want to hear from us even more, please consider signing up for our Patreon. You can now get a free 7-day trial to check out the show. The link, as well as our social accounts, is in the description of this episode. Welcome to Mailbag Monday, the show where we answer your Mariners questions. And we're going to begin right here with Ham Swaggerty 69. Says, I know the M's need bats, and that's obvious. However, do you believe they could make their strength, the rotation and bullpen, stronger if the bat market gets funky? Colby, what do you think?
In theory, they could. In practice, I don't think it's a good idea because the pitching market is the funky market right now. Everything is, kind of out of control, and Texas is paying significantly more than they should for marginal pitching upgrades, and you look at what St. Louis got for. Well, I mean, look at what St. Louis got for Montgomery. Look at what St. Louis got for Hicks. The pitching market's the one that's insane right now. And when you look at the few hitters that have been traded, the prices are totally reasonable. So you could, in theory, and there is a point where you say, well, in theory, there could be a point where you say, well, let's just go, improve our strength and shorten games as much as we can. But I think you're going to pay more to do that than you're going to pay to just go out and get a couple of league average bats or a league average bat and a platoon guy. I don't think that it makes a tremendous amount of sense from a just value standpoint to try and buy pitching in the middle of the year. It's incredibly expensive. So I think for me, I would rather just try and upgrade the offense. If you can go get a number 5 starter, fine. Like if you can go get a middle relief guy, fine. But, to say, oh, well, we're just going to go get a Eduardo Rodriguez or whatever. No, that doesn't make any sense.
Michael Lorenzen.
Yeah.
Paying Montgomery prices on Michael Lorenzen.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't pay Montgomery prices on Montgomery. So yeah. It's no, I think the best thing to do is still to focus on the offense. And you got to get something done at that spot. Again, I'm sure the Mariners are sniffing around the number 5 market and some middle relief options, but no, I don't think that to make the moves that would truly strengthen your rotation significantly, you're going to have to give up like Gabriel Gonzalez or maybe even Harry Ford right now. And that's just not something they should do. Not for a pitcher.
Yeah. And the Mariners are so good on the top end of their rotation that they can afford to just get a number 5 who's just a number 5, because also that guy's not pitching in the postseason. So if you make it there, you just need a guy who can eat innings, take the load off of Brian Wu a little bit, because they haven't been super committed to just outright shutting him down. They haven't said like that's coming yet. They've left the possibility of him finishing out the season in the rotation open. So, maybe that's not as much of a pressing need, but also I don't want to rely solely on Emerson Hancock to make up those innings if Wu does have to be shut down, or they do have to lighten his load a bit, or, Adam Oller or Logan Allen getting meaningful starts in August and September. I don't want to go through that. So they do need a number 5 starter. And I think there is a point where that doesn't get outrageous, even in this market. But, in reliever wise, look, if they trade Paul Sewald, we said this last night, they need to turn around and have another trade lined up for a high leverage reliever. Basically, they essentially have to do what they did with the Kendall Graveman, Diego Castillo situation.
Yep.
But outside of that, I have no interest in paying these prices for relievers, especially like above average relievers, because the only thing that I would really want right now, reliever wise, bullpen wise, is another high leverage reliever. But that's going to be too expensive probably. So I'm out on that. unless they're able to find some creative way to get an exciting arm. But I just don't foresee that happening. So it's number 5 guy for me, and then that's it on the pitching front, unless they trade Seawald.
Yeah, you don't want to pay too much for middle guys because you have those in your organization that are probably just as good as what you can get. And honestly, it sounds like what the Mariners need is they need Marcos to be back and all, but can't rely on that. So it's unfortunate.
Next question here comes from Kyle. How many MLB level trades do you think the Mariners make before the deadline? All right, so it's time for some predictions here. You're gonna go on the high end, you're gonna go low, you're gonna stay somewhere in the middle. What are you thinking the Mariners are gonna end up doing here before 6 p.m. Eastern tomorrow?
Nothing.
You're already printing your Fire Jerry shirts after last night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, available at patreon.com/controlthezone.
Shirts not endorsed by Titan Gonzalez.
That's only because Ty thinks that. Yeah. He doesn't want to burn that bridge, but just wait till Tuesday and see what happens. So
some of you remember my reaction to what they did after the Castillo deal last deadline. And a lot of you dragged me for it. And you know what? I was right.
Wow.
What happened?
Kind of not Mariners related. Well, kind of.
Aaron Savali.
Yeah.
I saw
Kyle
that.
Manzardo.
Whoa. Yeah. See. Yeah. I'm not
too expensive. No.
Aaron Savali's not even that good, man. For Kyle Manzardo. No.
Yeah, Manzardo's a legit. I mean, he's a first base only prospect, but he's a legit hitter. But anyways, not a Rays podcast. Fun trade though. Fun trade.
Yeah.
Just think about if Savali's worth that, like Gilbert's worth like 8 times that. Anyways, I forgot the question. 2. I'll say 2.
2. Yeah, I think 2 as well. And I don't think either one of those trades are going to involve Teos Hernandez, Ty France, or Paul Sewald. I really don't. I think that they're definitely entertaining those offers, but I don't think that Jerry DiPoto is an idiot. And I think that, and I want to believe him when he says that he does care about winning first and foremost here, and they do have an opportunity here to make a run. So I think both of those, I'm going to say 2 as well, maybe 3. But I think I'm at 2 as well, and I think both of those trades, they just bring in a couple of, they might be marginal hitters, but guys that do raise the floor of the offense a bit.
Right. Real fast. Something that may be on the table now that the Guardians have acquired Manzardo, Josh Bell, Josh Naylor. Something to think about. 2 other first base only types.
Yeah. All right. Nathan here wants to know, great Sunday show. I agree completely. Since Grichuk was traded last night after the show, what other options do they have besides Canna? Do the Mariners have besides Canna? It's feeling like the options are running thin the longer Jerry DiPoto holds pat. I mean, there haven't really been any options that have gone off the board though so far. Grichuk,
really just one.
Crone. I didn't really consider Crone personally, so
Mike
it's
Forster.
Really just one. It's just one for me.
Santana, maybe, but
I wasn't thinking that the Mariners were going to go after Kike Hernandez. I didn't think that they were going to go after Ahmed Rosario. So you did, maybe. But you love Ahmed Rosario for inexplicable reasons.
I have watched Colton Wong play second base for 100 games. That's the reason.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. What was the question? I got sidetracked.
What are the other options out there?
Options besides Canna, Paul DeYoung. If you're talking about outfield, Tommy Pham. There's still guys out there. I mean, there's Seth Brown, Max Kepler, sure, Max Kepler. There's obviously the report about Alex Verdugo. I don't think that's going to happen. There's some stuff in his history that's come to light that maybe you shouldn't want Alex Verdugo on your team, but that's another story. There's guys. Adam Duvall, like you said, that's another good one. Mm-hmm. There's definitely like names that make sense. Now, how many of these guys are actually going to get traded? Who knows?
Josh Bell,
Josh Naylor,
mm-hmm.
John Candelario, Lane Thomas, probably not, but
apparently the Nationals were asking for Bobby Miller for Junior Candelario, so I'm going to say that's probably not a real option at this stage.
No, no.
Victor Robles,
sure.
Maybe Joey Meneses. Like,
Yeah. Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's guys. There's guys.
Tim Anderson.
Sure.
Mm.
Maybe Gavin Sheets or Jake Berger. Like, there's guys.
Mhm.
Just they're not exciting, and that's fine. The Mariners don't need to make the Luis Castillo splash.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's guys, and a lot of guys that we don't even know are available.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I don't know, maybe Alec Baum is one. So,
This is just not the year that the Mariners or really any team are going to be able to go out there and get like an all-star caliber bat. Maybe someone does that we're not thinking of. I don't think the Mariners are going to be the team that does it, but there just isn't like an obvious answer on that
yeah.
front. So, I'm playing a losing game by saying this, but my advice to Mariners fans is to go into today and tomorrow with a fairly empty and open mind about what the Mariners can bring in. And if they do bring in some players, might not be someone that you necessarily recognize, but that doesn't make it inherently bad. So something to keep in mind there. Just saying. But yeah, there's plenty of options outside of Canna, that we can think of. And maybe there's some options that we're not even considering that are actually possible. So you never know around the trade deadline, and you never know with Jerry Dipoto. All right, we got more questions to answer here in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. Take your first swing at betting on Major League Baseball on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets. That's up to $200. That's right. Just bet $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's $200 you can spend betting on everything from the money line to the over-under to who you think is going to hit the first home run, all on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you can get paid instantly. There's no better place to bet on Major League Baseball than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/LOCKEDON. That's Locked On. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you again for making us your first listen. You can catch the Mariners and the Red Sox tonight on the Mariners hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app. Last game for the Mariners before the trade deadline. And we got some listeners that are going to be going to all these games thanks to our giveaway that we hosted a couple weeks ago. So hope everyone that won tickets has a good time tonight, tomorrow, and Wednesday. All right, let's get back into these questions here on Mailbag Monday. Matthew wants to know, with the Mariners using 2 catchers in the lineup recently, do you see them wanting a third catcher on the roster? If so, could Yasmani Grandal be a name? Switch hitter, can play first base, 94 WRC plus this year, took on the $6 million owed. Might lower the cost on Tim Anderson if interested in him also. All right, that's a lot to unpack, Colby, but thoughts on Matthew's question?
Yeah. I don't think you need to carry a third catcher to use both guys in the lineup at the same time.
It's kind of an overrated thing, right?
It is, because, worst case is you have to survive one game where you lose your DH. If the starting catcher gets hurt and Murphy's in the lineup as the DH, well, he just becomes the catcher, and then the DH spot becomes the pitcher spot. And yeah, that sucks. Obviously your pitcher is probably going to have to hit once or twice, but sorry, that's the risk. And how many times have you seen that? I don't think I've ever seen it. So yeah, in that situation, fine, you have to wear it for one game. But then you just call up Brian O'Keefe and whoever the new catcher is gets a majority of the play time. So I think if you're going to do that, you have to believe in the bat. And Grandal, 94 WRC plus, that's not great. You're probably getting more value from Mike Ford for the rest of the year than you are Grandal. So if you think Grandal can hit, if you see something, then possibly. But I don't think that the Mariners are too keen on giving, the $6 million that you owe Grandal. And then I think we're still looking at about $4 million or so for Anderson. I don't think they're too keen on giving $10 million to 2 below average players, which is what they both are right now. So
yeah,
Interesting idea. Grandal is a guy who, again, has hit in the past, does do a lot of the CTZ things, but right now is just kind of a shell of his former self. He's not that good of a catcher anymore either.
No.
So I'd say probably pass, but it's not the worst idea.
Yeah, on the third catcher front as well, like, all right, if you do lose Raleigh or Murphy, both of those guys, in my opinion, could start for a lot of teams in Major League Baseball right now. And when I'm saying that, I'm mostly referring to Murphy, because there's some that still believe he's just strictly a backup catcher. He's not playing like a backup catcher this year. Dude is bringing an insane amount of value to the Mariners this year. But if you were to lose one of those guys, I mean, you would have a pretty normal catching situation compared to the rest of the league still, even with, Brian O'Keefe getting called up or what have you. I think as Mariners fans, we've been spoiled a little bit by great catching situations, and this goes back to even a few years ago when they had Narvaez and Murphy and Nola all on the same roster together. Obviously not the greatest defensive catching situation, but guys that produce offensively. So it's not like, it wouldn't be a death knell to the Mariners. It would certainly hurt a lot, because especially like if they were to lose Murphy, because he's, for the last week, maybe last 2 weeks, has been one of their 3 best hitters. So yeah. But I don't think that they need a third catcher. And I definitely don't think that they need to aim as high as like Yasmani Grandal for that, which isn't really like aiming high necessarily, because he's fallen off. But still, I don't think that you really need to go get the name there. I don't think that he's a great fit, and I don't know what it would particularly cost, but I just don't really have much interest in going down that avenue personally. Interested in Tim Anderson though. He's hitting a lot better lately, so, and he's starting to hit for a little bit more pop. Finally got his first home run a few days ago, but yeah,
I think he's running a sub 350 slugging percentage in the second half. But yeah,
oh, is he really?
Like, his batting average is really good, but like I think the home run is his only extra base hit.
Oh, I thought I saw something that he was like hitting like 4 something.
Maybe he is. I don't know. But
okay. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. All right. Moving on here. We got a question from Rational_franchise. Why is Mark Hannahan an upgrade over Teoscar's bat? You do know he's batting .245 with 6 home runs, right? I know Teoscar strikes out a lot, but ... question mark. It's not very rational of you, Rational franchise. Canna walks more. He strikes out less. He has a higher WRC plus this year. I think he's worth about the same F4. Look, I'm not saying he's a great bat, but he helps. And also, I don't think we were ever trying to make the argument that he's better than Teoscar. Like, add both. Have both on your team. Do that. That's totally fine. Yeah, but Canna right now, like, in terms of just like you don't need home runs right now. You got guys that can hit home runs. You don't need home runs. Like, you need guys that move the line and come up with a clutch hit when you need it. Like when you have a runner on third and less than 2 outs in Arizona, the 9th inning, after getting an insane triple from Cade Marlowe, like,
right. Yeah,
instead of Jose Caballero taking that bat, maybe you have like Mark Hanna on your bench, bringing in the situation. Just saying.
Right. Canna. Is he really better than Teos Hernandez? By WRC plus, about 13 to 15% better. So, yeah, it's pretty significant.
Sure.
But again, like Ty said, why is it one or the other? Like, Canna would primarily play, left field and DH for you, and then he'd occasionally play right to get Teo a DH day and all that stuff. So it's not one or the other; it's both. But if you want to know, is Mark Canna a better player than Teoscar Hernandez? I would say only statistically.
Yeah.
So isn't that the only thing that matters?
Yeah. Again, I don't care about home runs. This year, Mark Hanna, like, historically speaking, Teo has been the better bat than Mark Hanna, but Mark Hanna's the better bat this year.
Yeah, we're 103 games in.
Yeah. So.
Like Canna's been better this year. I don't want to tell you. So is Max Kepler. But yeah, Canna. Canna is he's just a better player than Teoscar right now. He does more for you. There's more ways he can help, and Teoscar, of course, is on an epic slump. Aside from the 2 games against Toronto, he's been pretty bad.
Also, Canna can play third. Canna can play first base. He can play a little bit of third. He can
stand over there.
He can stand there.
He's not.
If you need him to play it for a day.
Same for center field. Like, You don't want to, but like,
No.
who's the backup center fielder if Julio needs a day off right now? I guess it's probably Taylor.
Yeah, Arcade. Yeah, one of those two.
It's probably Taylor.
It's probably Taylor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Cade Marlowe's had a very impressive start to his major league career, but that one route that he took on that ball in Minnesota was yucky.
He's a good athlete. He can make up for it. But
good athlete. Yeah. No, I think he's a better fielder than maybe we've seen so far. But
sure.
Yeah.
I mean, Marlowe looks every bit of a fourth outfielder right now. Like, but
please let him be our Jake Myers or Chas McCormick. Please.
But like,
please. We just need one of those.
Sure. But it's only been like 20 plate appearances too. So like, but I mean, he's clearly leapfrogged Taylor Trammell in the pecking order.
If they did add an outfielder and you needed to send someone down, it's Taylor, without question. Without hesitation. And I think the Mariners recognize that as well. I think that's evidenced by, how they're setting their lineups every time there's a righty on the mound right now. The last few days hasn't been Taylor except for like one day on that front. So yeah. All right. Next question here comes from Dakota, and you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you again for making us your first listen. What is a name that is not being talked about that could be a target for Jerry and Justin? So this is kind of a similar question to one we got earlier on in the show, but I was trying to kind of think outside the box today, right? Because, last year, none of us thought about Jake Lamb or Matthew Boyd or Kurt Casale or whatever. Yeah. And again, I dragged the Mariners for making those trades at the time, and surprise, surprise, didn't work out. So I'm not saying this would be good if they did this, but I was trying to look at some guys that have been like pretty good recently. So I went on Fangraphs. I set the date from June 1st to now, which is essentially 2 months because we're at the end of July now. So 2 months. Who are the league leaders in WRC plus? And it's mostly, it's most of everyone that you would expect, right?
Is it Shohei Ohtani?
Yeah, it's Shohei Ohtani. It's Corey Seager. Yeah.
What?
It's Julio. The Mariners are going to trade for Julio. No. So I didn't find a lot of names, but I found a couple that might be of interest to the Mariners. Jace Peterson and Andy Ibanez. Andy Ibanez, 30 years old, right-handed hitter for the Tigers, has played some third, some second, some first, and he's hitting for a 119 WRC plus right now, and I think he's still pre-arb, technically. So you would have him under club control if he's someone that you want to keep around, but that's not really what I'm thinking about here. I'm thinking about 2023, and really, when we're talking about second base, Colby and I have gone over this more so on our Patreon show. Second base is a barren wasteland in terms of the guys that could actually realistically move this deadline. So while it's definitely a low bar to clear with Colton Wong, it's not as easy as just trade for X, because other teams are also looking to trade for X, right? So the best route here for the Mariners in terms of second base or just middle infield in general, so just get another option in there. Take a flyer on someone. So that's kind of the idea here with Ibanez, and also Jace Peterson, who's under club control through 2024. He signed a 2-year deal with the A's, and friend of the show, Jason Churchill, has said that the Mariners have talked to the A's, so maybe that's a thing. Maybe that's someone that the Mariners have actually talked to the A's about. He also can play some second, some third. He's a left-handed bat. He has a 107 WRC plus over the last 2 months. He's mostly a platoon bat, just hits righties, not particularly good against lefties. He's 33 years old. I know that's not exciting, and that might not necessarily be an upgrade, but I do wonder if maybe those are a couple of guys that the Mariners are looking at as well. Because again, you gotta, like, we talk about getting creative, and I think like a lot of people just automatically think that it means like, 3-team deals and buying someone from a team that you wouldn't expect to sell. It's not necessarily just that. It's also like looking at trends, looking at guys that have gotten hot recently and trying to buy in on that. Guys that are not like, if you look at either one of these guys on Fangraphs, if you look at Ibanez, if you look at Peterson, they're not going to excite you at all. They've been below average hitters for the overall year. But again, looking at the last few months, there's been some promising signs out of those two guys. So again, maybe those are fits. Those are the only two guys that I could really think of that are under the radar. Do you have anyone else?
Yeah, I went a different way with under the radar.
Sure.
These are players you've definitely heard of, but I don't think we've talked about a lot as
Okay.
being potential trade. One of them is somewhat ironically Josh Bell, who
Right.
has been only okay this year. Got off to a really slow start, and he is due quite a bit of money, and he does have a player option. So there's some concern there, but a lot of the hard hit data that the Mariners love to use, Bell is at the top. He hits the ball very hard. He's a switch hitter too, which is helpful. First base DH only, so that's again not ideal, but you kind of can't be picky at this point. You just got to get the bat. So Bell's a guy who now makes even more sense. Brent Rooker is the guy I was thinking about last night.
Yeah.
28. So the club control thing is a little bit. He's not 24, right? He's not 24 with 5 years of club control left. He's 28. He's having a bit of a breakout year, but he strikes out a lot. He can't play defense really at all. Again, another first base DH type who can, fake it in the outfield. Fine. But, right-handed bat, not a great fit in terms of the CTZ stuff, but he does also hit the ball very hard, which is something we know the Mariners value quite a bit. And then one other guy who just got back, and I barely put him on this list because unfortunately he plays for the Rockies, but might as well see what Brendan Rodgers cost you, because I think that's a guy who makes some sense. He is a long-term second base fit, and it's going to cost you quite a bit. There's no doubt about that, but I think Rodgers is a pretty good player, and I think he's a guy that Seattle would, in theory, have interest in. It's just, what are the Rockies going to do? Because they are impossible to figure out.
Another guy I'll throw out here, and I don't think this is going to happen. I'll just say that first and foremost here. But another guy that I was kind of thinking about today is Nick Madrigal. And obviously the Cubs are in a place where they're going for it. They've told teams they're not trading Bellinger. They're not trading Stroman.
Madrigal's different.
Yeah, Madrigal's a little bit different. He's still not hitting for any power, and he's been hurt twice now, especially over the last 2 months. He's been hurt for a majority of that, but last 80 plate appearances for him, he has a 139 WRC plus, gets on base, he doesn't strike out, he doesn't really walk either, but he makes a lot of contact, and that is pretty much what he was projected to be at the big league level too, coming out of college. So yeah, if you can get him back, playing his natural position at second base, and maybe there's something there to unlock. But again, I don't think that's gonna happen. But just another name to consider there. All right, last question of the day comes from Jace. What win total do you think is needed to grab the number 3 wild card?
87. Yeah. I think less than 90.
So the Mariners have to win 33 games the rest of the way? 32 games the rest of the way? What are they at?
Let's see.
What is their record now?
54 and 51, I think.
Oh, it's 54 and 51. For some reason, I thought they were 55 and 52. So yeah, so 34 games, 33 games, give or take.
Yeah, 54 and 41, or 54 and 51. So
yeah,
they would have to win probably, I would say, 34 games to have a good shot of winning that wild card spot. So
let me ask you this: what do you think it would take to win the division?
92, 90, somewhere in that range.
Yeah, because again, I think if any team is going to run away with the West, it's actually going to be the Astros. It's not going to be the Rangers, because the Rangers now for 2 months have been mid. They're I think a game under 500 over the last 2 months. I think they're 24 and 25 or something like that. So I don't really see that changing, especially with them losing Eovaldi. Yeah, they added Scherzer. Yeah, they added Montgomery. But again, these are number 4 starters at this point, especially Scherzer. So I don't think that moves the needle a ton. Nothing that the Rangers did over the last few days should scare you as a Mariners fan. It should scare the Mariners away from legitimately thinking that they can make a run at the division. Yes, it's unlikely, whatever. But
sure.
5.5 games, especially when you have quite a few games left against those guys right at the end of the year, that you have a shot. You have a real shot to go after it. So yeah.
I just save it for tomorrow. I'm gonna be so mad if they just sit on their hands and do nothing.
Yeah, save it for tomorrow. Save it for tomorrow.
Just
because, again, today I think we haven't seen a lot of action in general today. The Savali deal is it. I think today is really like where teams are making their final decisions on what they want to do. Right. Some teams are still trying to pick a lane, essentially. Not the Mariners, shouldn't be the Mariners at least, but there are some dumber teams out there that are probably doing that. Teams are still assessing what the markets are for their players, sellers, and they're weighing offers, they're talking internally, they're doing all this stuff. Today is just kind of it's the calm before the storm. And I think the storm is going to start back up here in 3-ish hours, 4-ish hours. I think we'll start to see some deals come through. But the deadline, if I'm not mistaken, the deadline has typically been around like 4 p.m. Eastern most years. This year it's 6 p.m. So I wonder what those extra 2 hours maybe does for teams.
It's just so that the Mariners can finish the Brendan Rodgers trade.
Right. Clearly.
Or the Josh Bell or Jose Ramirez. What? Who said that? Yeah.
Brian Reynolds.
Watch that be what it is, right? We're sitting here like Jerry should be fired. He wasted 3 straight, player acquisition periods, and at like 6:15 Eastern time, be like, whoa, we have a buzzer beater, and the Mariners have acquired Jose Ramirez. Like, God, build a statue, my man. Build a statue. Like,
all right. I don't want to get into a whole debate here. Right. We're at the end of the show. I do take a little bit of issue with you saying that he wasted 2 player acquisition periods, and I dragged them for the deadline last year after the Castillo deal. But because they did add Castillo, I can't say that they necessarily wasted.
They didn't go far enough.
Sure. That's good. That's good.
Which is wasting it, but sure, yeah, they didn't go far enough. Right. Can we agree though that if they don't do anything like in either direction in the next 24 hours, that's a waste?
Oh yeah, and even if they sell. To me, I'm pretty pissed off about that. Yeah, I'm pretty pissed off about that because, like,
I mean, again, I'll make this deal with you guys right now. If they do sell, we will break the trades down fairly, and we will give you like our opinions on the players and all that stuff. But understand, we hate them. We hate the trades.
Yeah,
there's like a 95% chance if they sell, we hate that trade, and we
will
give you our honest opinion on the player.
Unless they get some ridiculous unhinged returns.
If they get Manzardo for Seawald, then yeah, fine, whatever. But like, come on,
yeah.
Like let's not kid people here. So
no, because this team right now, there's a lot of good things going its way right now, especially over this little run that they've been on, but just overall this year, right? And the 2 teams ahead of them in the West are vulnerable right now. And the teams in front of them in the wild card, even though there's a lot of them, even though there's a lot of teams just kind of around them in the wild card as well, they're all vulnerable too.
They all play each other a lot over the next 2 months.
They all play each other a lot. You're going to play a lot of them as well.
It's a big week for the Mariners. They got 7 games against the Red Sox and the Angels, so they can make up a lot of ground, do a lot of damage.
Yeah, I'll say this: if you don't do anything tomorrow that makes this team better, it doesn't have to make them, significantly better. You just need to get better in some form or fashion, right? If the market is too crazy, fine.
Positive.
But you have to add something. You have to get better to a certain degree. If you don't do that, you have failed this team and you have failed this fan base.
If you think your roster is a B- right now, if in roughly 24 hours it's not a B tomorrow at least, then you failed. You took the L, and the fan base has every right to be extremely mad at you. This clubhouse has every right to be extremely mad at you. And if they don't, we'll see how the clubhouse reacts, because it's going to be pretty easy for them if they don't add or if they just sell to just be like, well, we're out, like we're done, clearly.
Yeah. And let's make it clear, if they don't do anything, again, this is a complete hypothetical, because and really no one's done much outside of the Rangers, really, and the Dodgers over the last few days. But if they don't end up doing anything tomorrow, or by the deadline, by 6 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, then that's a Jerry problem. That's a Justin Hollander and Jerry DiPoto problem. That's not an ownership problem. And You can bet your bottom dollar we're going to hold them accountable on this very show. So the next time we record could be very interesting. We're either talking about player acquisitions,
one of two ways,
or we are mercilessly dragging Jerry Dipoto and Justin Hollander. So I hope it's not the latter, because I've defended Jerry to the ends of the earth. But you might hear me say some things you might have thought were never possible for me to say about a certain president of baseball operations of the Seattle Mariners. But we're gonna hold on that. We're gonna hold on to that for now, and we're gonna wait and see. It's gonna be an interesting. We're at 26 hours now away, so we'll see how it goes. But for now, that's gonna do it for our show. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. For Colby Patnode, I'm Trident Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at @LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Dane Gonzalez at CANEGNZLZ, and Colby at CPAT11. That's CPAT11. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok as well over at Locked On Mariners. That's one word, Locked On Mariners. You can also find all that stuff in the description of this episode. Thank you again for making us your first listen. Have yourself a beautiful baseball day. We'll see you next time. Peace.